We are at the South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum, where businesses from China and South Africa, including government officials, have been meeting today in Beijing to discuss the latest in terms of elevating the trade and bilateral relations with South Africa and China. I'm joined now by Dan Marokane, the Group CEO of Eskom. Minister Marokane, thank you so much for your time. This is an important gathering, also important for Eskom as well. What significance does such an engagement hold for our national power energy company?
Look, China is a very big trading partner of South Africa, and the Chinese companies that are in the energy sector are also very big partners in some areas with Eskom. We know that they're also big players behind some of the independent power producers back home. But as a country and from an engineering point of view, China holds a number of interesting solutions for us as a country, given our own ambitions and given the reforms and the investments that need to happen within our energy sector as we improve the energy security for South Africa.
Let's talk about what you had updated the country recently about the summer outlook, saying that if things go much worse, and we don't think they will, we might see the worst being stage 2 load shedding. Is that still the forecast a week after giving us that update?
Yeah, we indicated to the country last week that if we stay below 13,000 of unplanned losses, we should have a load shedding free summer. We have seen great improvements in our unplanned losses over the last 5 months. We believe that this performance is sustainable, and if we stay down that path, we should be able to have a load shedding free summer, as I said. However, in the unlikely event that unplanned losses increase to about 15,000, we'll at most experience stage 2 of load shedding. As things are, we continue to see very great performance from our coal fleet, and our plan is to really do all we can to stay along this path.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Marokane. Well, you heard it. We are in for a bright summer ahead, a sunny summer ahead, and no estimated load shedding. And as the CEO has said, this particular forum on China Africa Cooperation Summit is important, and as well as this presidential business forum. There are a lot of businesses that are here, CEOs, chairmen from both sides of the two countries, and the bilateral relations have been cemented and are quite strong. I'm bringing you now the Group CEO of Standard Bank, Mr. Sim Shabalala, who is here as well. And as we know, Mr. Shabalala, Standard Bank is one of the big banks, one of the first ones which paved the way for South African companies to operate. You have been operating and have a partnership with the Chinese for 16 years now. How has that been? You recently celebrated that partnership.
Mr. Mbanjwa, it's been very good. It's been a long journey, and it continues to improve year after year after year. We have a team that is based here that works very, very closely with our colleagues at the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. They facilitate the identification of projects, the identification of opportunities, and they match the needs, either Chinese needs or African needs. And we've reaped huge benefits from this. If you want to put it differently, you have the largest bank in the world, the ICBC, in partnership with the largest bank on the African continent, Standard Bank, occupying the China-Africa corridor, facilitating the movement of goods, people, ideas, and capital between the two great nations. But very importantly, from an African perspective, South Africa has got the competitive and comparative advantage in that it is able to facilitate the movement of those goods, people, ideas between these corridors, but also into the African continent. And importantly, which is something that the Chinese recognize, the world is globalized. Even though the environment is difficult, the world continues to trade with itself. And in our case on the continent, we need roughly $3.4 trillion for roads, ports, bridges, water, and so forth. And we don't have enough of those funds on the continent, and we therefore need all the partners we can get to help us to finance these massive projects.
And these massive projects will include the African Continental Free Trade Area to make it a reality. Without which, without that infrastructure, that after that dream, that agreement is not going to become reality.
Indeed. However, the positive is it's the largest free trade area in the world. It's a massive population, 1.2 billion people, a massive GDP that is therefore attractive to people that want to make investments. And it's up to us as Africans to position ourselves and make ourselves attractive to all the potential partners and negotiate the best bargains for ourselves.
Let me ask you about the GDP numbers back home. Your views, we grew 0.4%. What are your impressions of that particular performance economically back home in South Africa as the news came in yesterday?
0.4% growth is still tepid. We think the country will grow at 1.1% this year, 1.8% next year, and roughly 2% going forward. However, if the infrastructure projects are executed with discipline and professionally, we could have trend growth in our country of above 3%. South Africa is the largest economy on the African continent. 3% on $450 billion is massive. And so it's exciting for us as South Africans that Operation Vulindlela, all these major projects, the country can become a construction site. I mean, talking to people here, they can see that. It's incumbent upon us to negotiate the best terms for ourselves as those projects get implemented.
And before I let you go, something else that has happened recently, the two-pot system. You are a Standard Bank group in South Africa, a massive player when it comes to people's livelihood financially. What is your view about how members of the public should approach the two-pot system? Because there are some who are saying that it is financially not a good idea for some, while others are saying use it to pay debt. What are your views about how the public should approach that?
As a fundamental principle, I don't want to split hairs. The fundamental principle is that South Africans must be encouraged to save. And South Africans as individuals, as families, as communities, and as a nation, we need to save. And when people have windfalls, they should apply those windfalls to saving.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shabalala. Mr. Sim Shabalala there, the CEO, the group CEO of the Standard Bank Group, talking to us about the importance of that Africa-China corridor, the fact that they have played a huge part with the ICBC, the biggest bank on in the world, actually, as they are the biggest bank on the continent. It's an important one for this particular gathering as far as this South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum is concerned. One of the companies that has been in China for a long time is Discovery through Vitality, partnering with Ping An to offer health assurance and health services. And the man who has been living in China for the past 4 years is David Ferreira, and we saw David earlier speaking to the forum this particular day. David, thank you very much for your time with Newzroom Afrika. Let's talk about what the President addressed as the chairperson of the South Africa-China Business Association. There is this issue of crime, where investors from China are worried about crime. Was the President reassuring in his speech about the crime levels today? And what have you gleaned around what investors say about South Africa as far as crime is concerned?
So crime obviously is an issue. And personally, I found what the President said extremely reassuring. I have a great deal of confidence in the President's leadership, as you heard me say from the stage. And I think his remarks around getting crime under control and prioritizing that and taking strong action will go down very well. You heard the audience actually applauding those statements. So I think it was extremely positive. From my perspective, my experience is not that crime is the number one issue that Chinese investors in South Africa, potential investors in South Africa, and just Chinese business people who are interested in trading with South Africa raise. What they raise is usually, in my experience, one of two things or maybe both. The one is the very big issue of economic growth. Where is the economy going? Is it growing? Are there prospects for significant accelerated growth? So I think that's probably the biggest single issue, is where is economic growth going to come from? And then the second is what I call a small issue, but at the same time a big issue, which is visas. It's actually quite difficult at the moment for people coming from China to go to South Africa, including my business partners in Ping An. Again, this was something that the president acknowledged and undertook to address. And again, you heard that the audience gave him a round of warm applause. So I really genuinely take huge comfort from that. I think today was an excellent day, and you can see that this is a president who is switched on to what is required in order to gain more from the China-Africa business relationship.
What will South African businesses gain, including Chinese businesses, gain from the new formation that is being created, the South Africa-China Chamber of Commerce? That is a new formation, a new body. What will they gain from the creation of that particular body?
Well, look, actually, I would say that South African businesses in China are already very well coordinated. We communicate extremely well amongst ourselves. We also coordinate well with our diplomatic missions here, particularly the embassy in Beijing and the consulate general in Shanghai. And we also coordinate and align with incoming government missions to China. So we already, I think, conduct ourselves very responsibly and contribute not only in the economic sphere to the bilateral relationship, but actually with the positioning of the brand of South Africa Incorporated. We are very good citizens here in China and very well coordinated. I think incorporating a formal South Africa-China Chamber of Commerce, and SACCC, is taking that up a notch. It's allowing us to formalize that under Chinese law, hire people to help us execute against those ambitions, and just increase the impact and visibility of that sort of coordination and alignment that I'm talking about, and help critically, I think, with the facilitation of Chinese businesses going to South Africa and South African businesses coming to China, including new businesses, big and small. So I think it is quite important. As you heard me saying on the stage, this would be the first formal Chamber of Commerce coming out of the African continent, and I think we're all aligned in public and private sector that this is the next logical step for the presence of South African business in China. And so, I look forward to the incorporation of the SACCC, hopefully in the not too distant future. But meanwhile, we do what we need to do anyway.
David, before I let you go, you've been here as Vitality for many years in China. Tell us really what it takes to actually come to China as a business, as South African business, and be successful, because there has been a massive uptake of Discovery Vitality over the past couple of years, over 10 years in fact. The uptake has been huge.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we first came here in 2010, so it's going on around 14 years now. Our partner is Ping An, and Ping An Group is really, it's difficult to imagine a better partner. I mean, they've been a very wonderful and reliable business partner, and obviously they have a very powerful brand and very significant capabilities. So doing business with them has been a pleasure and a privilege. Discovery owns 25% of Ping An Health Insurance Company, so the Ping An Health Insurance entity. And that health insurer has become the strongest, most profitable, most robust health insurer in China. We have over 27 million customers in China. So it's a business that is growing into a significant scale now. And as you say, the business model has really been inspired by Discovery's shared value business model and by the capabilities that back up that business model, including vitality. So if you went back in time, Ping An Health Insurance, like most health insurers globally, would have offered financial protection, which is great. It's very, very important. But now, in addition, it offers you the tools and the capabilities to know your health, improve your health, and get rewarded. That's essentially vitality. Here we call it Huoli Go, and Huoli is the Mandarin for vitality. And then the third leg is helping our customers to access the healthcare system in an efficient and intelligent manner when they need to. So really offering a customer that we will help you to improve and look after your health. That will in turn help us because your insurance claims will reduce, all other things being equal, and in turn that helps the whole of society because we produce healthier citizens. So it's been a fantastic journey. I've been here 4.5 years. We've had ups and downs because that included the whole COVID pandemic, but it's been a remarkable and very gratifying journey for Discovery and Vitality in China.
David, thank you so much for your time. David Ferreira is the chairperson, the chairman of the South Africa-China Business Association and the CEO of Discovery Vitality in China, an important company in terms of the model of how that particular South African company came to do business in China, where most South African businesses are also looking to make headway. The African United Business Confederation is also among the businesses from South Africa, among the confederations rather, and formations from South Africa that is in Beijing. China attending the South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum. And I'm joined by the president right now, Mr. George Sebulela. Mr. Sebulela, thank you very much for your time today. We've heard the president speaking, quite an important speech. There are hundreds of businesses from South Africa represented here, and also from China. What are the significant benefits from businesses from China and South Africa that are not here today when they hear that there is a new chamber that's going to be created, when they see that the conversation and the relationship between the two countries is being elevated?
Look, firstly, what businesses are looking for in this kind of forums or engagements is the opportunity to trade. Secondly, is the opportunity to see if there is a chance of getting support around industrialization, particularly where technology, skills, research and culture comes in. So therefore, the endorsement of what the president spoke about today clearly tells us that there is a strong relationship between South Africa and China. But the practicality is the entrepreneurs want to see the real implementation of this relationship. To say the politicians deals with the policy, the businesses must make sure that these policies are very conducive for them to be able to do business. And I think that's the most important thing, is that China has a vast of technology, vast of capital to be invested. We want to see Chinese coming to South Africa and build industries rather than trade. Because you can sell goods, yes, but you need to create jobs locally, and that's what we want to see. And I think the commitment of some of the memorandum of the agreements we have seen, we want to see them to practice on all these agreements that have been signed. And we say to the businesses that are at home in South Africa that we're waiting to see what opportunities are going to be made available. And for all our counterparts that are coming to China to look for businesses, let's treat them as such to see how realistic they are. in ensuring that local development is taking place.
Mr. Siblela, just briefly, we saw that the GDP numbers came in at 0.4% for the previous quarter. That is at least some level of growth, but it's still paltry compared to what our peers are actually doing. What do you think is stifling growth in South Africa, briefly?
Look, South Africa has been experiencing a lot of challenges. We are expecting some good performance of the government of national unity. One is, as you are aware, that the state-owned enterprises were under pressure. Eskom was under pressure, extremely under pressure. The debt levels is quite high. It was very much reliant on government guarantees. Corruption was also very, very strong. Now, Transnet similarly went through the same processes. We're now seeing the new leadership that has come into Eskom giving some energy from the board to the executive management. We will see some changes coming through. We now have to see what the National Treasury is going to do in order to release and relieve the fiscus as it's under pressure. And we want to see the government also accelerating the spending in the infrastructure. And once we see that happening, we surely can see some release of a number of activities taking place that can create very sustainable jobs.
Thank you very much for your time. That is the president of the African United Business Confederation, George Sabulela, having his say about this state visit and the forum on China-Africa cooperation, together with this particular business forum taking place in Beijing, China. There is a lot that is expected in the outcomes of the South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum in Beijing, China, following the state visit by Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, to President Xi Jinping ahead of that forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit that will have other heads of state there. I'm being joined now by Gloria Sirobe, needs no introduction in South African business. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newzroom Africa. This particular forum is quite an important one to elevate the relationship between South Africa and China. But your chat today was around agriculture. Tell us a little bit about how important that sector is to South Africa and to China as well, regarding what you spoke about here today.
So China imports a lot of agricultural products. They are the leader in the world in terms of global imports. And so most things they eat here, they don't have them. And so about $200 billion a year that they do on imports. And South Africa is a tiny, tiny piece of this, like 0.4% of that. So for us, the important thing is to increase that percentage of how much China imports from us. The market is wide open. What is probably has to work on us is the productivity, because China is very large. We had to do better in terms of the production levels. But on the other hand, they have interesting technology which can help us in terms of the irrigation schemes, the choice of better cultivars, and so on. So China is a good partner to have because they've got something to give to us and we've got something to offer them. What, though, needs to happen is that their import tariffs are quite high for us, for South Africa, which means when the products come here, they may be more expensive than those from Australia, New Zealand, because they have better arrangements. So I think the one thing that state to state they must try to talk about is how to tone down those import tariffs. The second one is the other challenge is that they have very harsh phytosanitary regulation. You know, that testing of the products in terms of temperature, very tough. And that too we can do with a little bit that of being toned down. If we can get away with that, we are good to go, because we have a lot of land arable and underutilized. If you go to Limpopo, if you go to KZN, if you go to Eastern Cape, we've got land there that can be used for this purpose. And all it means is that people must go back into agriculture now. It's cool. It's actually cool to be in agriculture. It's cute. I think people must just do that. But on the state-to-state side, if they can just negotiate those two things, we will be good to go.
But would you say it's promising, the creation of the new South Africa-China Chamber of Commerce? And
promising because a lot of protocols that have been agreed just now, they've allowed our avocados to come here. That's a big thing for us. Last year they signed on beef. That's massive because those are products that are natural to South Africa. And it being such a big market, ours is to just produce those things and supply them.
Mama, thank you very much for your time. Gloria Sirobe, quite an important player in the South African investment space, saying that there are trade impediments that need to be removed in the agricultural side, but it is an important one for South Africa in elevating that particular relationship. Whether it is electricity, agriculture, electric vehicles, science and technology, and higher education, the relationship that South Africa wants to build with China is becoming deeper and deeper. And it is something that is being cemented here at the South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum ahead of the much vaunted Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit. I'm joined now on the manufacturing side by Xolani Mbanjwa, the chairman of Alex Forbes and Aspen Pharmacare. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. You have spent some time here in China this week trying to learn about the manufacturing gold standard that China has when it comes to the manufacturing sector. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned and if there's anything that we should learn from China and how it conducts its manufacturing processes.
Since arriving in China on Saturday, I have spent 2 days in Hebei province outside of Beijing, visiting about 6 Chinese companies that are involved in different types of manufacturing. What I find interesting here is the culture of innovation and culture of research and development and the advanced technology that is deployed in order to modernize manufacturing. And this is something that is a blueprint and that is a reference point which as South Africa we can learn from. Can I remind you, Xolani, that in the 1980s, Chinese people used to go on fact-finding science visits in South Africa because South Africa was more scientifically and technologically advanced than China. But today, you look at China, as you have rightly said in your intro, it is the second largest economy in the world. It is South Africa's largest trading partner, and South Africa is China's second largest trading partner in Africa. Why? Because of investment in technology, investment in skills and talent, and that is something that we can learn from. Their logistics and supply chain connectivity is world class. That is something that we can also learn from. I was very pleased to see the CEO of Transnet is here, as well engaging with other role players in the logistics and freight space here. And this is the kind of engagement that we need. And also, as business leaders from South Africa, coming to China is like a masterclass in management, in leadership, in manufacturing, if you are in manufacturing, in financial services, if you are there, because it's just innovation in almost every aspect of this economy. They are not the second largest economy by accident, and they've taken over 400 million out of poverty over the last 20 to 30 years.
And when it comes to the lessons that COVID-19 would have taught us about the world suddenly needing vaccines at that time, and we're catching up, what has Aspen Pharmacare learned about moving fast in terms of pace when there are pandemics such as that, and as far as China and how they responded to that particular pandemic 4 years ago?
The lessons are not just limited to Aspen as a company. I would dare say these are lessons for Africa as a whole, as a continent, lessons for South Africa as a country, because we saw the rise of vaccine nationalism, we saw the rise of PPE nationalism. It was like every man for himself, or every woman for herself. Every leader was putting their country and their people first. So Africa was left on its own. Black men, you're on your own, as Steve Biko used to say. I think now this is an opportunity for us to reindustrialize, to reset our approach to industrialization and modernization of our economic basis. President Ramaphosa has spoken about the need for us to reduce the trade deficit that we have with China. Although we are trading well, they are our largest trading partner, but the trade is in favor of China. How do we make sure that we make the terms of trade fair and equitable? How do we make sure that we rebalance the structure of our trading with China? We need to invest more in manufacturing. We need to export more into this market. We need to work hard and smarter, maybe not hard, but work smarter. Learn from China, how China has managed to do it, because they are now competing with the best companies from the Western world. And South Africa can do it. We've shown our capabilities and capacities in pharmaceutical manufacturing, in automobile manufacturing, and now we're rolling out renewable energy without any hitches or challenges. But there is more that needs to be done in renewable energy to make sure that we've got homegrown companies that are players in the capital goods aspect of that value chain, so that the money is not just earned by the owners of intellectual property and expatriated out of South Africa. This is a golden opportunity for us to reset our approach to industrialization and make sure that we industrialize in ways that benefit South Africans in the medium to long term, and be intentional and deliberate about making sure that South Africans are on the driving seat of reindustrialization, of manufacturing, not just spectators on the margins.
Mr. Dlamini, thank you so much for your time. That is Xolani Dlamini, the chairman of Alex Forbes and Aspen Pharmacare, saying that when it comes to manufacturing, he has witnessed how China is the golden standard around the world, and we need to learn as African countries from how they've managed to conduct a business here in their country. South African companies are very interested in elevating trade and bilateral relations with China, and the feeling is vice versa with the Chinese as well, judging by the outcome here at the South Africa-China Presidential Business Forum. One of the businesses that are here is Basmark Africa, and another is Siga Immobility, which is headed by Patuxolo Nodada, and he joins us now, who is in that particular sector. Patuxolo, thank you very much, Mr. Nodada, for joining us. Your presence here, the significance of South African businesses being here. Tell us a little bit how your sector and your company can actually gain from being in such bilateral relationships with companies and industries in China.
Thank you, Xolani. You know, we've been working with the Chinese companies for a longer period of time, and in South Africa, being involved in the automotive sector, automotive manufacturing, has been a good for us, an experience exporting to Europe and other countries, you know. And we've always been undermining the Chinese product for a longest period of time, and the Chinese have showed us some significant improvement in terms of quality, or improvement in terms of components that they are putting into the vehicles. They've advanced and adopted electric mobility ahead of us, and they're doing extremely well in terms of that. They are leader currently globally, and we're here to witness and improve our relationships with them, where we can be able to advance. One has partnered with these Chinese companies and manufactured electric buses in South Africa for the longest period of time. And now we're moving into cars, we're moving into other types of equipment. And now we're saying that, you know, we're moving and growing. And for us is to be able to have a presence where we can be able to partner with the leaders globally.
let's talk about our South Africa's hydrogen readiness. Hydrogen readiness in terms of those engines. Now we are in electric vehicles, hybrid is there, but you have moved into that particular hydrogen engines. But is South Africa ready? Are investors ready back at home? What is stopping that particular mobility into that particular sector? Hydrogen is such an interesting sector for South Africa, but you are in that sector already.
Okay. Again, Xolani, we were ahead as South Africa in terms of development of hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell technology. And I can certainly say to you, the technology and the partnership that I have with Chinese is the fact that I've commercialized with the Chinese partners what I have developed for a longer period of time. And the Chinese, because of their funding and ability to do things, they're rolling out the technology into other parts of the world. And I'm saying that we have hydrogen fuel cell buses running in China, maybe in 10 cities already. And we've got into Malaysia and Singapore. And there are other countries that are growing in terms of numbers. I now have an international business based in Shanghai, just focusing on the hydrogen fuel cell. It's said in South Africa that we have not taken advantage of the hydrogen fuel cell technology because we can generate hydrogen cheaper than anywhere else in the world, and we've got all the ingredients to do it. But there's no one, or government is not investing in the infrastructure to charge and adopt hydrogen fuel cell in South Africa. We're probably going to only now, with the support of the EV policy and changes, that we're going to have a hydrogen fuel cell charging station in 2025. And just having one station, it can go to more. But we're looking for the South African government and the companies to adopt the change, because if we want to live longer and keep our land more sustainable, we need to move into hydrogen fuel cell, because that's the ultimate clean energy.
Mr. Nodada, thank you so much for your time. That is the head of Basmark Africa and SIGA e-mobility, talking about how important it is for his business, for that particular automotive sector to move in South Africa quick and fast into hydrogen, as already we have adopted the hybrid model of electricity and EV vehicles. Patukolo Nodada is the CEO there at Basmark Africa. For Newzroom Africa on Channel 405, I'm Xolani Mbanjwa in Beijing, China.